Grace Ormsby here. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Property Showcase. As that intro does say, we're all about making sure that you guys are better informed and have all the latest and greatest on what's going on in the property investment space. And someone who's been on this show before, it's an absolute pleasure to be welcoming back. They are the Director of Australian Property Scout and host of Scouting Australia podcast, Sam Gordon. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Grace. Thanks very much. Great to be back.
It's been a little while since we last chatted. I can't even sort of think, but at least 8 months. Must have been early this year.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking early this year as well. It has been a while. It's good to be back.
What's been going on? I'm sure it's been a pretty busy 2022 for you.
It has. Yeah, there's been heaps going on. We've kind of built internally within the APS team a lot of different little departments that I think are really optimizing both the business and the client experience as well. So that's been really good. It's been a really different year in property as well. You know, the 2 years before were quite crazy. This year's been a very different market, but I've actually loved it because it's created different opportunities. Bull markets are very hard to be extremely aggressive in terms of buying and buying at good prices and all the rest of it. They can be very hard to pick. So when a market calms down a bit and the the conversation changes, it makes it a great opportunity to be able to get some great deals. So it's been a busy year.
Yeah, I love that you bring up opportunities though, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. You found an opportunity to tap into really what you know in the property investment space. I'm not going to be the one to give it away. Can you enlighten us a little bit, because that's something that you've been up to this year too. Like if you weren't busy enough already, you've just gone and done this too.
Definitely. So obviously we've just launched the Scouting Australia podcast. It has been cooking up in the background for a very, very long time. But it wasn't until just recently we had the right people kind of come in to help us really kind of get it off the ground and launch it. And it's something I'm super excited, super passionate about. I've always done really well on other people's podcasts and always loved it, jumping on everyone else's. But it's a different avenue, being able to do it myself and kind of, gear the stories the way I really want to tell them as well and get the people on that I want to talk to. And yeah, it's cool. It's matter. I'm really excited.
So why now? Why sort of the back end of 2022? Did it just feel like the right time to get into it?
I think I've been so focused on everything else we've been doing with clients and with Australian Property Scout and what we've been building on that side. I think it's just finally come around to the time that I've decided, we'll finally get it off the ground now. I know people have been asking for it for ages. I've had clients asking me for years, to start my own and run it. But I think, stars just aligned. Like I said, I had the right person come in that I was able to, utilize his experience in this space as well. And to, really, I guess, take it, get it off the ground and start running it. So yeah, super excited.
There you go. So what were clients specifically asking you? What was it that they were like, we want you to be talking about this?
I think just my take on things. I've got a bit of a different opinion to most people in the industry. And I think that comes from experience, like what I've done in my own portfolio and what I've been able to build. And I think people like kind of the raw. I think that's why I always rate quite well on other people's potties, because it's quite raw the way I give stuff, and it's not, I guess, flap. It's the facts of what does work. So there's a lot of different people kind of asking me for different things with it. A lot of time, strategies in terms of different properties, but even strategies in terms of like what should that person specifically be building out, or what properties do they need in their portfolio. So a lot of those different things. And the way I saw it really is like the podcast is my way of giving back, because property's given me so much over the last few years. I've been investing now for 13 years. It's been a long time. And really it's just my way of being able to give back and really just give some really good content back and try and deliver on everything that, especially the people throw at you and ask you. And I do a little thing on Instagram and Facebook called Wise Wednesdays, and I only go for like 2 or 3 minutes. There's only so much you can put in a little Wise Wednesday. So yeah, instead we went down the podcast route to really deliver as much value as we can.
Very cool. I mean, how do you then decide what's, I don't know, relevant enough, insightful enough, on point, like at that time, timeliness enough to go into that podcast? Like, are you structuring it, or is it just kind of we'll see how it goes, what comes up next kind of thing?
It's definitely a mix. So there's things that people have asked me for ages to cover, different topics, and then there's things that I've wanted to cover for ages. Things like even like mindset, and kind of building your mind to be right when you invest, because it's not the easiest thing in the world. People think it's sunshine lollipops, all the rest of the sort of stuff. It's not.
We all wish it was.
It'd be
It'd be
nice if
so
it
much
was.
easier.
It would, right? But the old saying of if it was easy, everyone would be doing it is so true in that sense. So it's, yeah, I guess it's delivering all that stuff, and we're very active with what we're doing. So like we record these it comes out every week. We normally record every couple of weeks, and really we're just asking the audience to give us as much feedback as they can on what they're wanting covered, and then we'll cover it. Pretty much anything's open, and yeah, we're really looking to answer all the questions that everyone's got.
Talk to me quickly about mindset, Sam. I know this is going to be a conversation that you do unpack a lot more with Phil. You're talking to him a little bit later today as well, and that is an episode that people should be looking out for. But mindset is such an important thing, especially many would argue that at this point in time, we're going into a very different market to what we saw earlier this year. And the game does feel like in some senses it has completely changed. You probably would argue that, it hasn't completely changed, but it's hard to not have those kind of voices going around your head.
Definitely. Sorry. So what's the question? Like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So how do you then talk to mindset? How do you talk about, how do you broach that topic when everyone does have different thoughts? Everyone's thinking different things.
I think you've got to surround yourself in this sense with people that are talking the same language that you want to speak. So if you want to hear, if you want to be positive about what you're doing, if you want to put your head in the sand and go, oh, the market's going to tank over the next few years, and talk about the market as in the whole of Australia, and put your head in the sand, then you're going to find those people that are going to tell you the same story and go down that avenue. But I think surrounding yourself with the right people, listening to the right stuff, and being really positive at all. And it's looking at what you can actually do. So for some people, it won't be right to invest over the next couple of years. They might have overextended themselves, might over leverage themselves for whatever reason, or not have the actual capacity to do it. But for those that do, you have to be really wary of who you're taking advice from and who you're listening to. A lot of the time, your people that are closest to you, they will try and give you what they think is good advice, because they're trying to look after you. Like, let's say your parents or grandparents or friends or whatever, might even be your partner that doesn't really understand it all that much. But realistically, if you know what you're doing and you execute to a high level and you're buying in the right market, you can still make really good money on deals at the moment. There's still good growth locations out there growing. There's still opportunities out there for positive cash flow. Just because interest rates have tripled or whatever, they've had a huge run in the last 6 to 8 months. It doesn't mean there isn't still opportunities out there to still get great yields and still achieve positive cash flow. But instead, everyone sees the headlines of, oh, rates are going crazy, all the rest of it. To me, that just creates opportunity. I get excited. That's what I'm saying to you. Like, it's a very different year this year to the last 2 years. I get excited. Like, that's great. All right. Let 90% of the market sit out for the next 12, potentially 18 months before, interest rates potentially start coming back down again. Let them all sit out, and we'll go have a field day being the 10% in the market, going to having a crack at the people stressing and so on. Like, that's where fortunes are made. That's where like really strong portfolios are built. I invested in a very similar market when I first started back in 2009. It was literally just after GFC. The complete landscape had changed. It'd gone from a complete bull market to a complete bear. And that's what really set the foundations for my portfolio investing in those first few years.
Well, I think that was a pretty good taster of not only what people can hear on your own podcast, but what you're talking to Phil about as well.
Definitely.
You brought up to the importance of being surrounded by good people. I'm very curious to know, knowing that you have surrounded yourself with a lot of people that have helped you along the way, and how important that is to you. Are people like that going to be appearing on your podcast as well?
Yes, definitely. So we're looking to get in the best guests we can as well. So industry experts in their relevant fields are going to be really big, and then also clients of ours as well that have had really inspiring stories. I think that's a big thing. We had a lot of people come to us that were either really nervous or only had a very small amount to start with, or potentially later in life, that started with not heaps, and then later in life, but then they've turned it around and 3-4 deals in a couple of years, and their lives are completely different. And it's crazy. Like, even thinking back to the first conversations I had with some of these guys, and then how that's changed into what they've been able to build, and now their mindset and how positive they are. Just been like, this is so possible. Like, look what we just did in a couple of years, and then they're so positive on the outset, moving forward and beyond it. And so often it's literally getting over the hurdle of the first deal. pulling the trigger on that first property, because the first, like, it's a nerve-wracking thing, especially in this current market, whether you're on your first property or you're talking about multiples. But it can be a hard thing to pull the trigger in this market. It's just getting educated, get the right support and guidance and advice around you, and then execute.
Sorry.
You're right. Do you need some water?
I'm good. Sorry.
I was holding that off as well, so I just smacked the water.
So it's almost going to be, Sam, it's almost going to be a little bit of a handhold, really, then, this podcast, you know, you being able to get out in front of more people. And I love the fact too that it's not just for, I mean, it is for anyone who wants to be listening in, but even for your clients, a way for them to, you know, to hear more from you in the first instance, without having to sort of call you up when they know how busy you are.
Yeah. No, it's honestly, it's going to be awesome. Like I was saying, like so often, you get the same questions from people early in the journey. And like, I love jumping on the phone, chatting with my guys and the rest of it. And it's amazing. But so often the same questions come through, and if you could deliver it in a way and then unpack it in really, really good detail, it's actually really funny. I always think, sometimes I have conversations with clients, I'm like, shit, I should have recorded this. There was so much gold in this conversation. I should have recorded this thing. And that's the idea, really, of what this is. All these conversations I have with these different people, instead of having them individually everywhere, just trying to give back, you know, and get it to everyone, so everyone can take those little gold nugget moments out of it as well.
Very cool. And I feel like, Sam, it's just such a great way to be finishing up 2022 and looking to the year ahead. Obviously exciting times ahead for you, but is there anything that you can sort of, you know, divulge, or what opportunities, because we brought up opportunities a few times in this podcast already.
Yes.
What opportunities do you see over the next 12 months or so?
I think it's very funny that you bring up opportunities and talk about 2023 when we're in late November. I am always a very firm believer of making the most of this end of the year. So you got about 3-4 weeks left until a lot of people will kind of shut down and go away on holidays and everything. I would be looking for the opportunity in the next 3 or 4 weeks. I wouldn't be looking at, like, yes, obviously you take the longer term picture of next year into the equation as well. But there's a lot of people, like, it's like we already know right now, there's a lot of people sitting on the sidelines as it is. The other people that aren't sitting on the sidelines, 50% of those guys are going into holiday mode or thinking about next year. Oh, I'll put it on the back burner till next year. We'll do the holiday stuff. Like, that is the perfect time to go and bag yourself a great deal leading into Christmas. I know that's what we always go really hard. I literally work up until Christmas Eve, whatever the Friday before Christmas is, whatever that starts. We always work all the way up to it, because there's always deals popping off and there's no one around. There's no one around to buy them. So we're always working our guts out right up until that last bit. And I'd urge everyone to kind of be looking to do the same thing. Like, look for those opportunities. If you've got the capacity to go now, and you can find the right property that fits your profile with whatever you're looking at. And like I was saying before, there's a lot of people that think the cash flow isn't on the table anymore, but it definitely is. They think the growth isn't on the table anymore. They see big markets like Sydney and Melbourne coming back. But there's so many other locations out there that still have a lot of opportunity, like you say, and are worthwhile buying into.
There you go.
But I think as well, sorry, moving on top of that as well, like, I think that's the biggest opportunity people can look at now. And obviously, if they do want any help with that process, they can reach out to us at Australian Property Scout. But in terms of looking towards next year, I think next year is going to be a really interesting market to watch. I'd be a little wary of the markets that are doing big pullbacks at the moment, but there are some cities and some big regions out there as well that are they had a good run over the last 2 years, but they're not overcooked. And they're coming back to a nice bottoming, and it's going to be a nice point to kind of re-enter those markets. But I'm personally going to be waiting for those markets for when that mortgage stress starts to come in. You know, people rolling off 1.99% interest rates and into the 6s or into the 5s or whatever. There's going to be a lot of people with a bit of mortgage stress around there. And as bad as it sounds to call that an opportunity, it realistically is. Someone's going to buy that property at a discount, and it may as well be us, to be frank.
There you go. So no time for the back burner, Sam. Obviously,
No.
full steam ahead all the way through for the last remaining weeks of the year. So obviously very exciting times. You've got the podcast too, keeping you busy. I don't know how you do it all, to be honest, but good on you. So Sam, if people do want to reach out for any questions, how do they reach you? And if they're also interested in the podcast, where can they find it?
Yes, obviously the podcast Scouting Australia is on all the all the big platforms. You can find it on your iTunes, on your Spotify, all the rest of it. You can also find it on our website, which is www.australianpropertyscout.com.au. We always offer, if people are looking for have a bit of a strategy and have a bit of a look into their portfolio as well. We've got great people on the discovery calls that can run through everything within your portfolio too. So I do encourage people to go down that avenue if they're looking for their next great deal. And then obviously on all the socials as well, Instagram, Facey, all the rest of it, at Australian Property Scout too.
There you go. Heard it from Sam first. It's been great to chat with you again, Sam. We shouldn't leave it this long between the next podcast recording, but thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Grace. Really appreciate it.
To everyone who is listening along, we hope you have enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, editor@smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. That is all we have time for. Until next episode of Property Showcase, stay safe and well wherever you are. Bye-bye.